This tutorial has been redubbed and transcribed. It's from an older version of Blender, but everything still applies to the latest 4.2 version. Shape keys in Blender provide a powerful way to store different positions of your object's vertices, allowing you to easily create and animate between various shapes. Unlike other software that may require you to duplicate your object for each shape variation, Blender efficiently stores this information within the object's data. This eliminates the need for multiple copies. You can hold a multitude of shape information within a single object, enabling you to animate smooth transitions between different shapes or even complex facial movements. To truly grasp the power of shape keys, let's explore how they work in detail. It's important to remember that shape keys are typically a final step in the creation process. Before adding shape keys, make sure your object is modeled to your satisfaction, as certain features may become unavailable once shape key data is associated with the object. Let's look at an example. This plane has 4 vertices, each positioned based on its relation to the origin. Shape key data operates in a similar fashion. If we assign a new shape key and tell one vertex to move to a specific location, it references the base shape key to understand where in 3D space that movement should occur. In this case, let's say the movement is recorded as 0 units on the x-axis, 1 unit on the y-axis, and 0 units on the z-axis. And because we've set up these keys, we can now animate smoothly between them. This allows us to create dynamic transformations and bring our objects to life. Now that we understand the basics, let's see how to create shape keys in Blender. Head over to the Properties window and locate the tab that looks like 3 vertices forming a triangle. This is the Object Data Properties tab. Around the middle of this menu, you'll find the section labeled Shape Keys. Make sure your object is selected in Object mode. You can't create new shape keys in Edit mode. Click the plus button to add a basis key. This key serves as the reference point for all future shape keys you add to this object. Click the plus button again to create a new shape key. This is the key we'll manipulate to create different shapes for our object. Let's take a moment to go over the Shape Keys UI you're seeing. First, there's the key list displaying the names of the keys you've created. You can edit these names to something more descriptive. I highly recommend doing this right away, especially since professional projects can have a lot of keys, sometimes reaching hundreds. It's also common to have 1 key per muscle movement for detailed animation. Next to each key's name is an eye icon. Clicking this will hide or show the key's transformation on the object. At the bottom of the list, there's a small plus icon that opens a search bar, useful for finding specific keys in a long list. To the left of the list, you have the familiar Add and Remove buttons for creating and deleting keys. Below the Remove button, there's a drop-down menu with functions you can apply to the currently selected key. Below the list, you have the Relative checkbox. This important option lets you decide whether you want the keys to track changes relative to the object's origin or to the basis key. I don't recommend unchecking. Next, we have the Pin icon. This toggles whether the key's transformation is always active, showing you the current key's transformation at a value of 1, or only applied based on the value slider, which we'll discuss next. Leaving it off gives you more control over when the transformation is visible. Beside that is the Edit mode toggle. This allows you to see the key's transformation while in edit mode, which is helpful for comparing your edits to another key's shape. The X button resets all keys to a value of 0. Be aware that as of Blender version 2.79, this reset action won't be recorded with automatic keyframes, so if you use this for a quick reset during animation, you'll still need to manually insert a keyframe to capture the change. Now let's move on to the info boxes. The first one, value, is the most crucial. This slider controls how much of the key's transformation is applied. Think of it like this: vector times weight. Let's revisit our earlier example. If we had moved a vertex by 1, 2, 3 units compared to the base shape, setting the shape key's value to 0.5 would only move it halfway. That's because we're essentially multiplying each component of the movement by 0.5, which is exactly halfway to its final position at 1, 2, 3. Below the weight value, there's a range selector that allows you to change the maximum or minimum of the weight value limit. Thinking back to the formula we discussed earlier, this will help you understand how your key will react if you were to set it to any value. The last input is the vertex group selector, which only applies the key to any vertices within a selected group. Finally, there's the shape relation option, where you can tell it to change in relation to another key. Now let's get to editing your object. Make sure the object you want to add shape keys to is selected and you have two keys added, the basis and the new key. Select the new key, then go into either edit mode, which I'll be using, or sculpt mode to change the position of the vertices. If you use sculpt mode, ensure your edits don't add or remove vertices. It shouldn't by default, but just double check that Dyntopo is left unchecked. With it off, it will only use the existing vertices on the mesh to deform. I'm going to turn on proportional editing with a connected setting, and I'll also go into the tools menu to turn on symmetry. This feature will only work if your object is mirrored on the x-axis, meaning the same number of vertices to the center. Let's make the character blink. Normally you'd want to set more than one key for something like this so you can control the eyelids separately. Zooming in on one eye in edit mode, let's start with the lower lid. For realism, the lower lid won't raise very much to meet the upper lid. Select a line of vertices, but leave the corners of the eyes unselected to allow for natural folding. I'll adjust the scale and position of these selected vertices to my liking. Next, I'll switch to the upper eyelid. I'll select the vertices and carefully move and rotate them along the curve of the eyeball to create the closed eyelid shape. Once the upper eyelid is in a position I like, I'll adjust the size of the proportional editing influence to make sure I'm only moving the necessary vertices. I want to avoid any unintended deformation of the surrounding areas. When I'm satisfied with the edits, I switch back to object mode and play with the shape key slider to see how the blink animation looks. I'll carefully observe the transition between the open and closed eye, looking for any areas that need further refinement. If I spot any issues, I'll go back into edit mode and make the necessary adjustments. It's also helpful to change camera angles and look at the mirrored side of the face to spot any areas that need fixing. Once I'm satisfied with the blink, I can move on to creating any other necessary shape keys. I've already gone ahead and made a few more. When you're ready to animate, open a new window in Blender and set it to the Dope Sheet editor. In the options bar drop-down, you'll find Shape Key Editor. This mode displays all your keys in a list with sliders next to them. It's the simplest way to animate. Just scrub to a point in the timeline, move a slider, and an animation keyframe is automatically added. And with that, I've taught you all there is to know about shape keys, except for how to animate with drivers. But that's a topic for another video. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to subscribe and join our Discord community.